kind of old-fashioned cop who preferred working the streets and making arrests to taking tests toward promotion. He was the closest thing New York had to a Dirty Harry.
This is One Tough Podcast on the OG Podcast Network. Here's your host, Bo Dietl.
Welcome to One Tough Podcast. I'm joined like always with my man Carlo.
Buongiorno.
Yeah. Whoa. What's this Italian stuff, man?
We have an Italian guest here. Speak a little Italian.
What do I look, Jewish? I'm Italian. My mother's born in Italian sister.
I know it.
Yeah. Well, we got a guest today that ain't just a guest. He's family to Bo. And put it this way, if I take a caller at 2 o'clock in the morning, there's one guy I'm going to call. And that's our guest and my dear friend, Joe Tacopina, one of the great defense attorneys in New York, across this country. One thing about Joe Tacopina is, if you got Joe as your lawyer, nobody, excuse my language, fucks with you. Joe, welcome to our show. It's a One Tough Podcast. We're very excited about having you here in New York. And, we know that you go back and forth a lot to Italy. You got that soccer club. What's it called, Venezia?
Very good. Why you speak Italian well? Venezia. Otherwise known as Venice, but yes, Venezia.
I like liver Venezia. That's where the onions, the liver, calves liver Venezia. Copycat off Venezia. So make a long story short, Joe. I know you for a lot of long time. You're a child of immigrants like me?
Mm-hmm, of course, yeah.
Both of them from Italy?
Both from Italy, yeah.
Well, I got a little German. My father was born in Germany, came here in 1916 or something.
My mom was actually born here, but her family's from Italy. My dad was born directly there. So,
yeah.
The whole crew's Italian.
Italian sister.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So, and honestly, my father came here in 1916, and came from Germany. They didn't have Nazis then, so I shouldn't really say that. But I don't recognize myself as being German. I don't recognize myself as being Italian anymore. I recognize myself as being an American. And that comes number one. Maybe you a little different. Carlo. Me, American. That's for my brother. You like that?
That's nice.
My brother passed away.
I know. Sorry about that. Yeah.
So, listen, you were born to immigrant parents. Do me a favor. How did you get involved with this lawyer stuff?
Well, I mean, I always like to debate. I always like to argue. Whether it was about it's going to rain, it's not going to rain, or that's blue. No, that's not really blue. It's more purpley. Whatever it was, I'd take a side and argue, even if I didn't believe in it. Yeah. And what really turned me, I was in college.
They call that on the street a hard-on.
Yeah,
guy
exactly.
It's always, if it's day, no, it's cloudy.
That's not, yeah, exactly.
That's a bit of a hard-on, right?
Sort of what I was. I grew up in Brooklyn, by the way, so.
You had a fight, too,
I had
right?
a fight. Oh, my God, did I have fights. Well, I tell people, my kids, God bless, they're lucky. 5 kids I have,
God bless you.
And I don't think any of them.
A lot of people don't know that about Joe. He's got a wonderful family, lovely wife, and 5 children, and he's a very devoted father and a very loving husband. And Joe, that's a beautiful thing.
No, it's the most important thing. And by the time I was 14, I had 100 street fights. Not because I was a tough guy, but because I had to survive. I mean, that was life. I mean, that's how I grew up in the streets. I started my life in Brownsville, for 8 years on Mother Gaston, which is not a pretty place even still today. It hasn't been gentrified. Okay, I know.
It was Ozone Park, Halsey. I used to go to. I was a Halsey Bop, and we used to go to East New York all the time. I'm a little older than you, but I've tasted my sweat and I've tasted my blood. When I get cracked in the head with a bat, I've tasted it a few times, but go ahead.
So it was fun. It was part of the upbringing, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. My kids have been blessed not to really, I don't think any of them have had a street fight in their life, but I'm not advocating that street fights are good things, but it gave you a sense of grit, character, and mental toughness and physical toughness that I rely on to this day, in a courtroom, whatever I'm doing. I mean, it's something that I really am grateful to say I could rely on and have.
Well, it's a great attribute to physically be, ready and rocking and rolling.
Right.
And even when I say, and I don't mean to knock any of the cops that are out there, but like when I came on the force, these were kids that were street kids from New York, kids from Vietnam coming right out of the service, and these guys were fighters. Now there's a lot of, with this new advent with all the females and nobody got punched in the face yet. So you pull your gun out, what do you do next? And you don't want to know something. I like toughness in a person, but I also like compassion.
Yep.
You could be one tough guy, but you can have compassion.
And, I've said this before, and it's the God's honest truth. I think back, I have never started a fight. I finished a lot of them, but I've just never started one. And that's something that, you don't want to be a bully. You don't want to be a punk.
I hate bullies.
I hate bullies too.
Yeah.
I hate bullies too. Anyway, so what happened in college, I was doing some debate work for a debate club. Again, just debating anything. And then I read a book that turned my life around because it was a book that made me look at law. It was called Fatal Vision. It was a true story book by Jeffrey McGinnis, about the Green Beret in Fayetteville, South Carolina in the 70s who killed his wife and kids. Jeffrey McDonald. Crazy story. And he said that some hippies broke into his place because he was a Green Beret. And, and then there was some evidence that there was some hippies around there. He described someone and there was a sighting of someone. It was a page turner.
He was building his alibi.
He was, but there was some real thought that he was truly innocent being falsely accused. And that book, every page, one page I'd say he's guilty. The next I thought he was innocent.
That's what really perked your interest.
That I said, I love this stuff. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm passionate about. And for me, if I'm not passionate about something, I'm not very good at it. So that's what got me focused on
for the listeners out there, you got to understand this whole thing. Carlo, listen up. You got to understand something. You have a defense. Everyone has the right to a defense. You could be accused of anything, including what's going on with the president. They can accuse him of everything, collusion, everything you want to, but you do have a right to a defense. And you want to say it is kind of exciting to plug holes in things, but I'm sure there are some cases, Joe, where your client is dead guilty. But what you do is you try to find out that the law was done properly.
Correct.
Explain that a little bit to our listeners.
Yeah,
that's important.
You're right, because some people say, well, how can you represent those people to me? How do you represent them? First of all, I've represented my share, Bo, of purely innocent people charged with very serious crimes. That's enough to keep me awake at night. That kind of stuff is not the stuff I enjoy about the practice. But when you have someone who's charged with a crime and the evidence or common sense tells you this person's guilty, and that happens. Okay, most people charged are somewhat guilty of something, if not what they're charged with, of something. Okay, so when you evaluate that case, you have to say, okay, our system is the best justice system in the world, bar none.
As it stands now, it doesn't get changed.
Yeah, as it stands now, it doesn't get changed, and it doesn't get it right all the time, but we get it right most of the time, and it's the most fair system in the world. Think of some of the other systems of justice out there. People are put in jail for years before they're even brought to trial.
Before you even charge.
Before you even charge, exactly. Including in Italy, by the way. They can detain you.
Turkey, Istanbul. Yeah,
they can detain you in Italy before, you get charged for a couple of years. Look at the Amanda Knox case and all that. But anyway, so, what you have to understand is we all have our roles. When you're representing someone's defense attorney, your role is not to be the judge, the jury, the executioner. Your role is to determine if everything was done on a constitutionally kosher basis, so to speak, right? You want to make sure that the cops didn't, do something illegal or wrong.
Right.
They didn't lie to get a search warrant, or they didn't fabricate evidence, or they didn't violate the rights of someone. You want to make sure that the prosecutors have turned over all the evidence and didn't hide some exculpatory evidence or favorable evidence. You have to put the system to the test. And that's your job as a defense lawyer. If you don't do that, you're failing the system, and you're failing the next person who comes into the system and may be innocent, right, is being hurt by that. So, it's not about lying. It's not about trying to make, trying
to get an angle and get
lemonade out of lemons. It's trying to make sure that everything was done properly, and you have to test that system hard. And that, if that means, getting a guilty person off because the system worked, because something wasn't done right along the line, that's the cost of justice.
Now, before you became a defense attorney, what did you do prior in the law with law?
I was a prosecutor. I was a prosecutor in the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. I was a deputy chief in the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. I did some work at the Homicide Bureau. I did a lot of homicide cases. And it was the other side of it. And believe me, I did that with the same vigor that I do defense work.
Yeah, but when you do it in a prosecution wise, it's a little different. You see things a little different. You're not looking for the angle of to get a person off. You're looking to prosecute and prosecute rightfully who. What pops up to my mind now with Brooklyn, I'm a retired detective out of Brooklyn Homicide, North Homicide Squad there. And all of a sudden this kid, I didn't know him. I was retired by the time he came on. Every one of his homicides, allegedly, they're all innocent. Somebody was killing these friggin' people. not the Martians. Now about 30, 40 homicides that he worked on are being reversed and thrown out. I mean, in reality, is that really good? I think it's a miscarriage of justice. Somebody killed those people there. And I just can't believe that this one detective, we're locking up 40 people that have been reversed. Every one of those convictions are reversed now, that they're going free. And they're getting money on top of it when they're getting out of jail. As an American citizen, I can't believe what's going on with something like that. What's your feelings about
my feelings on that, Bo? This is where my defense attorney sort of, clothing comes in, because to me, it's the right result. It's the right result. It's a tragedy because there's people who were murdered and killed, and their family now.
Some of them are guilty, but it's getting reversed on
it's getting reversed on
technicality.
Well, it's not just a technicality, like a minor thing. It's a massive technicality where
in other words, his witness, the detective
fabricated
witness
evidence.
Popped up on 16 different cases.
There's fabrication of evidence. They didn't reveal things that were supposed to be by law revealed to the defense, so they could at least examine the motives and the credibility of people. They hid evidence. I mean, that's not the stuff you can do. Our system fails when that happens. And look at this. Look at that situation. So he did it. He got his conviction, but look at the stain it put on the system.
So what you're saying, Joe,
it's the right.
Well, listeners, is these guys, a lot of them committed the murders, but because of the way it was investigated and prosecuted, and they didn't dot the I's, cross the T's, these cases are being reversed.
And I don't know the stories of all these guys. I don't know if some of them were guilty and some weren't guilty, but it's not about just dotting I's, crossing T's. Dotting I's and crossing T's is one thing. It's about lying. It's about fabricating evidence. It's about hiding evidence. That's a little more than dotting I's and crossing T's. That's the stuff that gets convictions reversed. Even guilty people get their convictions reversed when there's false testimony, when there's lies, when constitutional violations occur. We have a constitution in this country that means a lot. And when that gets violated, it's the worst thing that could happen to all of us.
Oh, imagine how that feels, Carlo. Imagine how it feels to be accused of something you didn't do because of the prosecution and or the police fabricating something. How would you feel?
So, what Joe was saying before, when you're testing the system and making sure that the prosecution and the police have a sound case, and if you find a technicality, that, like you said, it's for the next person that comes in. So when you have 30 cases that go by and there's still this flaw in the system, and there's cops that are lying, there's prosecutors that are looking the other way, it just sets them up for failure in the end, because maybe one guy was innocent, but 29 people were.
And Carlo, with all respect, I like the justice system. You know what the justice system's emblem is? It's a woman with a blindfold with a scale of justice. We used to have Miranda, didn't have Miranda, and we got Miranda. But if it would have went the other way, they would have maybe got rid of Miranda. But there are some overzealous defense attorneys that fabricate a witness, and a witness lies. I mean, it's on both sides.
They're just as bad. They're just as bad. I mean, if you're a defense attorney fabricating witnesses and fabricating evidence, you're corrupting the system as badly as, if a police officer does it. I mean, obviously, law enforcement has much more power, and they have a higher standard because they represent our community. Yeah. But a defense attorney doing that's just as bad. I'm not covering for that in any way, shape, or form.
My little problem with being a detective and a cop was, I've never flaked. It's called flake when you put something on someone, whether it be drugs or a gun or whatever. Yep. And cops were known back in the 60s to do that, carry a second guy. Bo never played that game. I always played it straight. And like I said, but sometimes to prosecute someone under the law, whether I don't make the laws, but in reality, I got a guy with a MAC-10 machine gun under his front seat. Did I see the handle sticking out? No. Did he have the fucking gun? Yes. Did I say I saw the handle? Yes. I perjured myself. You know why? He had that loaded machine gun under his front seat, but under the law, Carlo, he would have gotten away with it because it was deemed as a, quote, illegal search. But, I mean, that's the problem, Joe, I had in my police career. I didn't flake anybody. He had the damn gun. Then the other part is I locked up several hundred people with loaded guns. You have to say you saw a bulge. You pat a guy down. Either he's got the friggin' gun or he ain't got the gun. I didn't put the gun on it. So, you can understand now it's 34 years later, I could be honest about it. It's frustrating to have a case where you get a guy with a MAC-10 machine gun and you testify to the facts that, all right, I didn't see the handle of the gun, but I searched on there, I found a gun, and the guy's walking out of the freaking courtroom who just shot somebody before you got where I'm going with this, Joe.
I got where you're going.
It's a fine, like, tightrope.
Well, to that point, what you're saying, yes, you want to get guns off the street, but if you're just stopping people for no reason, maybe you catch a kid that's just, maybe has marijuana or something on it. Now he's in the system. He's got.
But you know what happens though also?
Carlo, go find your ball bag down the corner, right?
No. You know what happens though? If you lie, and Bo, you know how much I respect I have for you as a cop. You've done more for this city than anyone who's worn that uniform, and I appreciate that. So it's not you personally, but if anyone lies on the stand, now, especially a law enforcement officer, it's a violation of not only the law, it's a violation of the Constitution. This Constitution is set to protect all of us, the innocent and the guilty. And when you start sort of cutting corners, because we know they're guilty. Okay, so let's cut corners because we know they're guilty. Yeah. You develop a pattern and a habit of starting to cut corners, period. And that's when innocent people start getting swept into the system and get hurt.
But I was trying to give you a synopsis, Joe, of the turbulent early 70s when we had 2,200 murders a year. We had people getting gunned down. And one of my things was, again, and I'll sit here, I never, ever flaked a person. I never, ever put drugs or guns on anyone. But I just gave you an example.
Good was served.
You know what? Yeah. I gave you an example, Joe. Then I became the expert of someone with a gun. You look at one pants leg lower than the other one. He keeps favoring himself when he has
like your coat that's popping out a little bit on that side. Yeah, I thought I saw that. My point is, that's how I used to testify, Joe. How'd you know he had a gun? Well, he was favoring it, and then when I went up there, I says, "Well, what's in your jacket?" He pulled back, giving me direction to grab it, and I grabbed it. It was a gun. I understood what the criteria was that you had to have the evidential right to search a person. Right.
That I started to fine-tune, and that only comes with experience. But I gave an example, Joe, not for people to think, oh, Bo lied on the stand. I told you the facts of my life going through. We had a shooting. There was a MAC-10 under that front seat. I had no cause to look under that front seat. I did reach under it. I pulled the freaking machine gun out from under the front seat. Sorry, I own up to it, Your Honor. Guilty as charged. But my point is I'm trying to bring out an example of when you have so much turmoil going on the street, people being shot, people being killed, like in Chicago. There has to be a way of getting those guns off the street. So a little girl sitting on a porch, 6 years old, doesn't get shot in the head by one of these gang members. I'd rather take a gun off, questionably, off the street than have that person get away and kill somebody else. I'm trying to give you the fine line.
And that's an argument that's hard to argue against, Bo. I mean,
you know what, Joe? I'm at a stage. I'm 68 years old. I'm a grandfather. I've been through it all, and I've done everything that I think in the right way, mostly in the right way. And I just say, there's different variables here where people say, yeah, no, but I do understand justice, and we have to play by the same rules on everybody. We certainly can't go get a FISA warrant under no credence and no credibility to get a warrant, because I remember I used to go for warrants, and if I lied on that warrant about an undercover gave me this statement about guns being in an apartment, and that was a lie, I'm opening myself up for felony. As you get older, more experience, you understand, and you work with what the law that you got. And that's all I was trying to bring up. But you could see both sides of it. And I think that's one of the most interesting discussions that we can have today is give both sides of it. There's both sides, and then there's that middle ground there.
Yeah,
the gray area.
And it goes both ways, right? I mean, I could see when, if you have a cop who's testifying who has a history of
I did use brutality. The N-word. I used the N-word many times in my career. I'm not Mark Furman, like a ludicrous jerk-off like that. Right. I never said that. Yes, Bo, I would say today. My point is, and one thing I got a good reputation of a lot of the DAs there, and wherever I was a cop, is I was out there. When I was a decoy, I was the victim. And I used to tell Judge Torres, Edwin Torres, the great judge, he was in arraignments a lot, And if the guy hit me with that bottle on my head, pulled a knife on me, stabbed me, tried to stab me, whatever, I'd tell the truth, man. That's what. Why'd you hit him in the head with the radio, Bo? Because I was fighting when he wouldn't get handcuffed. You hit him in the head several times. I hit him until I could get him handcuffed. I tell every rookie cop, don't deny what you do, what the reason for you doing it, and why you did it, what was in your mind. Tell the truth on all aspects of arresting someone, because you know how hard it is. You as a strong guy, Joe, how hard it is even to lock up a 98-pound woman if she don't want to get handcuffed. Yep. You got to have a little tiger on your hand. Yeah. So, I mean, it's great to talk from this side of the counter on my life experiences, but I do understand all sides of it. But I do agree with you, because I wouldn't want to be the victim of justice not being done properly for me. And I don't want to be the victim in the sense that if someone was investigating me and they did something that they weren't supposed to do, I want you, Joe, to show them that they did wrong.
Right. And some of, if you think about what's happened in the last few years, I mean, some of the people who are most skeptical of defense lawyers, when they were under the gun, became the biggest champions of the presumption of innocence. I remember Bill O'Reilly when he was getting accused by all these women, right? I did
the investigation for him in 2005, and then 2000 and I think it was 16 or whatever. And then all of a sudden I got attacked for trying to. All we did was an investigation for a law firm. Right. We were hired by Becker Epstein, and what they asked us to do interviews with people that knew the person that was making the allegations. And then all of a sudden I got condemned. You hate women, Bo. You're against women. I said, I have hundreds of them I've defended. I love women. And the point is that he has a right. Bill O'Reilly, whatever he did, has the right for defense.
Absolutely does. The irony of that, of course, was that anytime I was on his show representing someone accused, he would defecate verbally all over the rights of an accused. You too. And then like Rush Limbaugh, same thing. He was out. Please, if you're charged, you're guilty. If you're charged, you're guilty. Then he was under the gun with with the pills and all that stuff. And I can't believe people are jumping to conclusions like that.
Look, a perfect example is Mr. Putrid there, my friend from Hollywood there. What's his name?
Harvey Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein. And I got mad at Ben Brodman. Ben, I don't do no work for him. I've given him some of his biggest cases. Puff Daddy, Jay-Z with the stabbing, Puff Daddy with the shooting in New York. Yep. Mike Saraval did a fine investigation on that.
You guys did.
And in reality, we look upon things, and being a father of two daughters, and then all of a sudden seeing this slime bucket getting away with a lot of stuff, I said to Ben Brodman, I say, Ben, because I did a couple of shows, I put him down a little bit. He's a great lawyer. But I said, Ben, would you let your daughters work for this creep? I said, now he's sleeking out of all these cases. But he, being a scumbag that he is, still deserves the right for a defense.
Correct. And again, as long as that defense is within the four corners of the rules of ethics, as long as it should be hard charging, and you should be testing the evidence, and you should be making sure that when people get up there, raise a hand, swear to tell the truth, they're telling the truth, they're not embellishing, you've got to go hard, because that's how the system works. And if a conviction is had after that, then it was the right verdict. And, I could sleep at night.
You're making me become a real judicial type of balance of right and wrong, because I agree with you almost every aspect. But I wanted to give you a highlight. Oh, here's another one. Being in the private investigating business, I was with Mike Saraval. We go to a place up by City Island in the Bronx, and we're in the guy. It's a rape of a 12-year-old girl. And the guy is the guy who wants to hire is sitting across the table. And he's there. Mike's next to me, and the guy says, I took my daughter out on a boat with her girlfriend. I'm listening. Keep saying, and then they had a couple of beers, and then they had a couple of shots, and you know how it is. And then all of a sudden she smiled at me, and I didn't force myself. I looked at the guy. He says, Mike, we better get the fuck out of here. If I punch this guy right in his face, I should take your money, shove it up your. That's one good thing.
I would have followed you out that door. I probably would have hit him first. Because I probably would have hit him first.
This is Joe, because he has emotions as a father and as right and wrong. And this little creep, whether he gets away with this on a legality, still should have got.
No, there's zero chance. I represent someone who I think, as an adult, raped an underage girl. Zero chance. Too. And I've represented plenty of people accused of rape. But when I represent someone accused of rape, I believe in them. I believe in their defense. I believe in
the
rape cops case, for instance.
You've heard someone trying to hire you, and you heard the case. You told them, I'm out of here.
I've turned many cases away, not just that. But
Me too.
Anything with pedophilia, if I believe the person's guilty, I'm not interested because I won't be that good for them because I can't look at them.
This guy was admitting to me.
Yeah.
And I mean, at that point, the only thing you think of is just taking his jaw
12-year-old girl.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. Now, you've had some real big, high-profile cases. Some of your high-profile cases, Joe.
I mean, A-Rod, Meek Mill. I represent Jay-Z on various little things that he has with litigations. What
was the story with this Meek Mill guy?
I think this case, points out a lot of things you were speaking about cops lying, about prosecutorial misconduct.
Lilo Brancato, by the way, that was a fun one. Lilo, remember the Lilo case? That's where you were a little mad at me on that.
Well, you know what? I being an ex-cop, I just had to turn away from Lilo. I know him. I like the kid, and I knew in a million years him himself without that other scumbag.
Well, Armento was the guy. I mean,
he was the guy
who killed. He was a piece of garbage.
He was probably stoned out of his job, but it doesn't
matter.
I still had a brother officer that doesn't come home to his family.
I know.
So that's why I had to stay far away from that. I think you asked me to help you with that.
I did.
And I said, no,
and I get that. But see, Lilo was acquitted of that because he wasn't guilty. I mean, don't forget, he didn't pull a trigger. He didn't have a gun. He didn't know this piece of garbage had a gun. The piece of garbage Armento is in jail for the rest of his life, as he should be, by the way. But, it's just you got to be careful about getting swept into the emotional undertones of a case. I remember that case. And, I represent, how many cops I represent, Bo? I represent cops all the time.
Cops get locked up, they go to Joe Tacopina.
I mean, I just got those two officers off in federal court in Newark, the two TSA officers were charged with assault. They were acquitted, a couple months ago. So, but on the other hand, it was something to see every day, 400 cops sitting in that courtroom, the family, the emotional sort of thing.
That had to be hard for you.
Oof. Walking down that hallway, yeah. And it was specifically because, I had a relationship with a lot of these guys.
How many under their breath? Scumbag.
Yeah, Pat Lynch and I almost.
Well, Pat Lynch, I just called out the other day.
Yeah, Pat Lynch,
on the Gardner case.
Yeah.
Because that would be I would love that case to defend that cop. Because 100% Pantolino, Italian cop from Staten Island, he did nothing wrong. The guy died of a heart attack, acute asthma, and he was still talking. I can't breathe. If you choke somebody, you're dead. I talked to Dr. Bunn. In this case, I called out Pat Lynch, and I called him out on the radio show with Sid and Bernie the other day. I said, he's silenced. He says nothing. They should be demonstrating. They should be all over the place. That's why he shouldn't be a cop as the head of the PBA. You should have someone retired that will go after Big Bird de Blasio when the cops are being talked about negative. What do we want? Dead cops? What do we want? Yeah. I would have cops demonstrating out in front of his Gracie Mansion like I did when I ran for mayor with that bullseye with pee on me right here, pee on Gracie Mansion, when he allowed him to piss out in the open and all. This is something that I'm outraged about Pantolino. I mean, the pressure. Yeah. They want this kid indicted for intentional murder? Well, the kid only did what he was authorized to do. Hey, look, you got to get out of here. You're gonna be placed on risk, which he's been. Right. You're not taking me. Right. So what are you supposed to do? Run away? And he did nothing wrong. Where's the job behind him? Job ain't behind him. And believe me, you got Sharpton there breathing in the atmosphere, looking for how much money he can make on the friggin' thing. We know Al Sharpton very, very well. We used to call him the fat rat when I was a cop. Now he's a skinny rat because his head's like big, and his body looks like a puppet. Yeah, but I mean, cases like that, you got cops that get in trouble, and that's something that I look forward to helping them. But like you said, the bad cops out there too, like they're bad doctors, man.
It's bad everything. It's bad lawyers, doctors, bad everything. So a few bad apples sometimes, unfortunately, stain it, for everyone else. But the Meek case that you guys brought up, Carl, you were saying it got a lot of press because it's a very high profile rapper. But we were involved in a system that really just run amok. It really did. It lost perspective, lost everything. I mean, when he talk about bad cops, I mean, when this kid was arrested when he was 18, Meek, the things they did to him, the beating they leveled on him, I mean, the evidence was there. The fact that they lied in affidavits, and they've all been condemned for that already.
Give me 50,000 feet of the Meek Mill case. Now, you have to get into particulars.
So when he was 18 years old, he's 30-something now, 31. Yeah. When he was 18 years old, he got arrested for a drug and gun case, on his porch.
Did he have the guns and drugs?
He had the drugs. There's a question as to whether or not he had the gun or didn't have the gun, or if it was flaked or not flaked, but whatever. I mean, he pled guilty. Okay, he had a deal, and so he wound up being on probation for now. It's like 10 years, over 10 years. No one's on probation. I mean, in New York, you have 5 years probation on a felony is the max. I mean, unless we're talking about pedophilia case. He wound up being on probation because this judge in Philadelphia who was obsessed with him, to the point where she asked him to actually record a song, remake a Boyz II Men song, and give her a shout out in the song.
Was she African American?
She was and is, still is. But she was, I mean, I've never seen anyone.
She just wanted him to come and see her.
It was unreal, the treatment he got and the things that she did. And she kept renewing his probation, and extending it. So 10 years. He's on probation for 10 years.
So what happens?
The initial cops were on a dirty cop list, the do not testify list. Yeah. That was never turned over to the defense. It turned out there was a big FBI investigation into these cops, these drug cops back then in Philly. The main cop, Graham, was failed a polygraph. He was condemned by the FBI, by the office. He was, someone who was known to the district attorney as being someone that they couldn't trust his testimony.
Does he get locked up a second time during his probation?
Yeah, he got locked up a second time. You know what he got locked up for? Did you see the video of that cop the other day in Washington Heights on that motorcycle? And he popped the wheelie and then he went. Yeah. Well, that's what he got locked up for. He was doing a rap video in Washington Heights on a moped, on a bike with about 8 other guys, and he popped the wheelie and was driving. Nothing happened. He didn't crash.
Even if the bike was not registered, probably.
It was. It has nothing to do with the bike being not registered. It was fine. It was for a video, and he was driving down, 110th Street or something like that, and he drove past the cop van. That was the funny part. Nothing happened. The next day, someone at 1PP got wind of it because the video was posted on Instagram or something.
He was on probation?
They knew he was on probation, but they went and arrested him. They arrested him. He was doing something at the Dyckman Street Housing Project basketball tournament. He was doing volunteer work for some kids. He walked out of the basketball tournament with about 15, 20 kids around him, asked for autographs and pictures, and all of a sudden about 20 cop cars pulled up. Literally 20 cop cars pulled up. I mean, the police force must have been nowhere else in the city that night, and they arrested him. They took him away like he was Dillinger.
On what charges?
Reckless endangerment.
With the bike wrap?
Yeah, with the bike the day before. He didn't crash his bike like the cop did. And here's the funny part. They charged him initially with the felony. Why? Because when I went to the precinct to get him out on a DAT, they charged him with a felony, and the lieutenant at the precinct looked at me and said, Joe, this comes from 1PP. This is not my bag of shit, is what he said. I'm sorry. I said, how can you charge him with a felony? Reckless endangerment, basically, you're risking the life of another person. Right. He was on a bike by himself.
Misdemeanor
at the most. By the way, the other 8 guys on the video never got arrested. I mean, this was something
was there any allegations of him having gang involvement, Joe?
No. Meek Mill, none at all. When he grew up in the worst part of Philly, his dad was killed on the same street that he was arrested when he was 5 years old.
See, a lot of people don't know the real. I didn't know the real circumstances.
It is. That case is unbelievable. That's a case where the system abused people, and fortunately, he had the wherewithal and the name and the platform, to put a legal team together to have a voice.
It with the other Philly case with the cop killer. That they're doing what's his name of it? The cop killer Jamal
Mumia Abu Jamal.
Booga, whatever the frig his name is, and he got convicted for killing a cop, and now they're trying to get him out of jail. So I always confuse it. And when you say Meek Mill, I thought he had more.
No,
I thought he had real stuff around. He had nothing.
He's a good kid who actually is doing justice reform work. I mean, he's a real articulate, and it's just what they did to lock him up.
You got the thing.
We got him out, yes, and we got him out. And,
so that was good.
He's good to
go.
Did
he pay his bill?
He did pay his bill. Unlike some of these highfalutin, celebrities, Meek was very good about that. He's a good man. Meek's a good guy, and he's doing something good for the system now.
Yeah, so that highlighted the issue of criminal justice reform and specifically probation reform, because that case of having probation for 10 years and anything could pretty much be a violation, even just having contact with the police. I mean, that's not good. It's dissuading people from intervening, helping people, into making a report.
Well, honestly, I'm for reform also, but I'm not for reform for cop killers. That's one of the things I'm not for reform. And I just saw in the paper today with the armor car stick up that skank,
truck,
that skank, robbery. Judas Skank is getting out of jail now. And then on top of that, the scumbag that killed the 10 kids I locked up in in the Palm Sunday massacre, 8 of them children under the age of 12, 10 dead shot in the head. He got out last year and a half. And then the 2 other scumbags that raped a nun, they carved 27 crosses in the nun in the convent, stuck a broom up her urinator, and left her for dead. They've been out for a while. I think one may be the mayor of Baltimore. I mean, this kind of stuff, I believe in reform. But you don't want to know something. You got a way out where you have a mad dog, too, a real killer. You don't want him back on the street killing or her killing people. What's your feeling with the bail reform and all that, Joe?
Listen, there's a fine line, and I think you sort of hit it, Mike. Reform is important, and we can't, our system is not made to incarcerate minor offenders. I mean, in Meek's case, when I went to visit him in the jail in Philly, half the people in that prison in Philadelphia were there for technical violations of probation in jail, ripped from their families, who does that
on
serve?
Violations of probation. That's bullshit.
That is, right? Half the people in that jail. And it was crazy. And that's what this reform is about. Look, reform, there's rehabilitation and reform. Rehabilitation is you want people to come back out and become productive members of society.
And you want
people get a second chance.
People do 25 years in jail, and it's not a heinous crime or killing of a cop.
Right.
That's where I'm drawing my line.
I get that. You're a police officer. You'll always be a police officer, and that's something that's near and dear to you, and they serve the community. And listen, because I represent so many cops, I understand it. And when I look at a jury, when I'm representing a cop charged with a crime, I said, especially it's a crime of when they're using force, when they have to exercise force on the job. I look at that jury in the eye and say, ladies and gentlemen, you can't understand. You can't pretend to walk in his shoes. Mm-hmm. You can't. You and I, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we go to work every day, and we hope we have a good day at work, and we hope we make money, and we hope our bosses don't ride us too hard, and we hope that's it, and we go home. A cop goes to work every day and hopes he comes home. I said, think of that distinction. Mm-hmm. I mean, think of that every day you leave your house and you say goodbye to your wife and kids or your husband and kids. Think of that when you don't know if you're ever coming back to that house. It's a little different to walk in those shoes and trying to understand what they had, a decision they had to make in a split second, whether to use force to protect themselves, their life, or the life of another. I said, so, it's very different. So I get that whole, brotherhood. I really do, because it is a brotherhood. But, on the other hand, reform is important and rehabilitation is important. But I agree, if someone does something so heinous, like the crime you just described regarding the nun, there's something so sociopathic in that mind that I don't know how you reform that. I just don't.
Even the killing of 10 people, including 8 children, that they'll never be able to get their Easter basket and play egg hunting.
Yeah, but if someone's convicted of that, life in prison is the only,
A mad dog, what do you do with a mad dog, Joe?
Well, someone who's been convicted of those type of crimes should be in prison for the rest of their life. They don't come out. They shouldn't come out.
Or execute them.
Yeah, that's not my gig, but
you want to know something? I could have executed the guy that killed it. Well, if you were there that day, I keep the pictures of my office of these little children grabbing, like reaching out. One girl had chocolate pudding in the left hand with a spoon in the right and a shot in the head. And I just, I read, and then I go over the nun rape thing when she was in a convent and she was praying to God, God, please help me. And no one helped her. And I could just see what she went through. And leniency and forgiving goes to a certain point.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's not about forgiving and leniency. Life in prison is a hell that I don't think any of us could understand. But I don't, look, on a personal level, if that were my relative, my kid, my daughter, I would take homicide rap myself.
Well, look,
because I'm going.
Look, that just brings out something where I got approached by somebody a few years ago. Guy was doing 25 to life. He was Italian from the Bronx. He was a wise guy, organized crime member, and he was in for 25 years. He was involved with a contractual killing, but since then being in jail, education, seeing God and all that. And you want to know something? I looked at it, I value it. I actually wrote a letter to the probational, the New York State Parole Board, and I said, look, I have cases where guys commit triple homicides. I have cases where people kill 10 people, and you guys are opening up. Well, why not this guy who's never got arrested prior, never got arrested before or prior or whatever, and this guy here did 25 years. He's never been able to see his family. Why isn't he allowed? And you want to know something? They gave him parole.
Did they?
And they gave him parole. He's lived in the Bronx. And you want to know something? He did his time. So and he didn't kill a nun in a convent.
I was going to say, there's a little bit of
children.
There's a little different view for me.
And this was an order
in that life.
This was an order. If he didn't whack this guy,
he gets killed.
He was getting whacked.
If you're in that life, I saw
that You want to
He
beat up
still
Curtis?
wears his little bandana around.
No,
him.
a little bonnet, I call it. Nah, I'm good with Curtis. No,
Right.
me and Curtis made friends. We're
right,
good, because otherwise I would have had to bow-eyes him. But you know what? I'm glad that we're understanding everything. I do believe in reform, just as long as it ain't something so heinous. And I put it in that same category, killing of cops for some reason, because, like you said, they get dressed in the morning. They don't know if they're going to go. I just had a fireman. We just had the Marine Corps law enforcement. Then I go every year. I love it. It's cops and Marine Corps guys. And we have Kallstrom runs it, Jimmy Kallstrom.
Yep.
So they just spoke the other night about this fireman, New York City fireman, was reservist, got killed last week in that Afghanistan. He had 3 daughters, 4, 6, and 7-year-old daughters. I'm just like, whoa, it just took me out.
Yeah.
He got killed over there. And that was one of the things we sent nice contribution.
Yep, Staff Sergeant Slutman is his name.
Yeah, and when I heard it, my insight, he could have just as well been a cop or a fireman dying in New York City.
Yeah.
But my point is that I have a feeling about people that put their lives on the line for people. It has to have a different, if you kill one of those, you're going to be facing something that you ain't facing other than that.
And the law allows that. I mean, assaulting an officer is different than assaulting me or you.
Have you been following, I come from that area, from Howard Beach, and this most haunting, beautiful girl, this Katrina Vetrano.
Yeah.
I mean, you see her picture, my God, beauty was beyond anything. And then this Channel Lewis. Have you been following this, Joe? What's your real opinion? Not as a defense attorney, not as a father, just you following what you saw, and with the allegation, with the DNA and all that. I mean, we didn't have DNA when I was a cop and a detective. That was like, forget about it. DNA,
Right.
You'd laugh at.
Well, you have a lot of things, right? I mean, I think about this now. I mean, you can't get into, and I say this almost like complaining sometimes, you can't get into a good street fight anymore. I mean, you can't. Some guy gives you some lip, you give him some lip, you guys get into a fight, and, one guy wins, the other guy walks away, and that's it. The end of the story.
You're going to get locked up.
Now, the winner goes to jail, the loser goes to the hospital, but you can't even get into a fight, because then there's a video of it somewhere, and they come find you. I'm talking about a consensual one-on-one fight, not with weapons, just
they'll lock
fists.
you up, Joe. You want to punch somebody out, they'll lock you up. With the shin, back to Chin Lewis, but not right away. But, I mean, look, I knew the detectives that were involved with the Central Park 5, and what I'm saying right now, they probably want to sue me for it, but I know what happened there, and there's 5 people that got $50 million. They were robbing people all over there. They were involved with this girl, but they had like 5 in there. They couldn't get an erection. Then Julio Gonzalez, whatever his name was, came along, seen a lady there, and he dropped a load in her. You understand where I'm going with this? So his DNA was in the broad. He goes to jail, and now they have a perfect case. And all of a sudden, they gave him $50 million. Now they want more money. They want another $50 million. They were no goody two-shoes. They were beating people up. They were robbing people all over Central Park. And my old partner there, what was his name? He used to work for Channel 5, Mikey Sheehan. Mikey Sheehan told me, and then I talked to Linda Fairstein, who I did a lot of cases with sex crime. They made them look like 5 innocent guys. They weren't in it. They were innocent with the rape of the girl.
Right.
Because you know what it's like, if we're 5 guys and all of a sudden we're out there, we're robbing people, and then none of us actually does it,
right.
And then the last jerk off that comes along and puts his DNA in them, then we're free. You understand where I'm going with that case? That is a fact, but that is not being dealt with. They gave him $50 million. They're looking to give him another $50 million. That, along with the Chanel Lewis case, that's
those are different cases. I mean, to me, this guy again. So I'm not going to talk to you as a defense lawyer now.
No,
right?
I'm just
talking as a common sense.
No, you're a prosecutor, a defense lawyer.
I'm a member of the
justice,
community. To me, the evidence in that case is overwhelming and powerful. DNA, for the most part, doesn't lie. Can be contaminated.
You're talking about on the Vetrano case.
Yes. It can be contaminated. DNA can be corrupted because you can place DNA, obviously. But there's no reason to believe any of these police officers would look to intentionally frame this young kid for
Now, what if they hired you, the family, Chanel Lewis, on this case? What would be how would you go to try to free this little scumbag?
Well, again, I'd look at the case first and come to my own conclusions. Okay, I really would.
Oh, you wouldn't just take it?
I would not just take any case that comes in my door.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to be an advocate for the client, right? I have to be an advocate. And in a case like that,
you have to believe in the client.
I have to believe in the client. And look, it's happened before. I've had many cases, very high-profile cases. Look, Lito was one of them. Like, when he first came to me, I didn't jump at that case. I said, let me take a look. And I took a look. And I realized that this kid was not guilty of the murder of the police officer.
He was probably whacked out of his fucking
Oh, beyond. I mean, he was a serious drug addict, and drugs destroyed his life. What a comeback he's made, by the way. He's out there again, and
honestly, I like Lilo, but I stay far away from him. I tell Noel Ashman he's doing movies. I said, I just can't.
I get it.
I just can't.
He's such a good
kid. When I walked in this building down here, we had Big Bird stopping traffic to have a promotion in Madison Square Garden today.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to tell you, every cop, all they I mean, like a fan club, everyone, hey, Bo, F Big Bird and all that. My point is that, I have a feeling, once a cop, always a cop in your heart. So I would take a bullet for a cop today, and I'd jump in front of a cop to save a cop. I really mean that. I really, really have an adornment, and a lot of them shouldn't be out there because they don't know how to do. You don't have to shoot. I never killed nobody, Joe. I could have killed 15 people where I've been stabbed. Guy shoots at me 5 times from 15 feet away, throws a gun on the ground, says, "You got me." I said, "Got you." I brass knuckled him into the ground. Yeah, I did. I didn't kill anybody, but I did. The guy just tried to kill me. My emotions, I can't even remember. Right. I saw red because this guy just tried to shoot me 5 times. I could have shot him. I could have got another medal. I have all the medals in the world. Could have got another medal. But you want to know something? You have to be a judge, jury, and not executioner, because I never killed anybody. But you have to sometimes give a person a little remembrance. Don't do that again.
A little remembrance.
These days, you can't talk like that. I'm talking, but that's the kind of guy. I was very fair in the street. And if a guy didn't hurt me, I give him a right shot. When I was doing decoys, kid grabbed my wallet and ran. I grabbed him. If only he didn't fight with me, no problem. I go before the judge and the DA. I got no problem with this kid. Give him the 15 days or some crap like that. Oh, this kid hit me on the head with a bottle. Yeah, I had to go to Beekman Downtown Hospital, get stitches. So, I mean, I tried to do the best job I could, and then throttle up or throttle down. Compassion, strength, and compassion. That to me is great criteria.
Absolutely.
So, but go back to the Chanel Lewis case. Well, from what you see, as an individual looking at the case, you're saying that the DNA is strong, and there ain't no way that you feel as though these cops fugaziized it.
No, I mean, there's been no allegations that they fugaziized it, and there's no reason that they would. I mean, so look, that stuff didn't make itself up. Those coincidences. I mean, he would have to be literally the most unlucky man in the world, the Chanel Lewis, to have been innocent of that, based on the evidence that I read about. I wasn't in the courtroom, but it's pretty overall.
He seemed like he mentally,
by the way, 23 of 24 jurors said he was guilty. The first case ended in a hung jury.
And now all of a sudden you have that other criminal, what's his name, Jamal, or what's his name? He used to be a city councilman, a psychopath. He's there. They're saying that the jury was yelling at each other, and the African American jurors felt intimidated. That's what a jury is. When you go into deliberations, if you put a camera and a sound in any jury box on any of these high profile cases, murder cases, you're going to have people, emotions are going to run high. They're human beings. And no, don't tell me what I saw. I want to hear the rest of it. This goes back and forth. This is what how does a jury come back in the Palm Sunday massacre, my case, come back, killing 10 people, 8 children under the age of 12, and say, well, he was only guilty of manslaughter because he snorted cocaine and he didn't know what he was doing. What? So that means if I want to do a little cocaine, I go kill you, Joe. And I really don't know what I'm doing. So my point is, these are issues that come out in jury rooms.
Yep.
And no one can control what a jury does.
No.
And the whole thing is having the jury having some sense of intelligence. And I'm for an intelligent jury. I wish we could have people with college degrees to be jurors. I'd rather that than someone who hates cops, who's going to vote against that cop's thing, or vice versa.
All right. And that's, in the rape cops case, that was a case where these guys were convicted before the trial. They were called rape cops 2 years before they went to trial.
Two young, good-looking guys. They saw a beautiful young chick there that did a deed with him. They never denied it. They said, well, he was voluntary, which probably it was. But they were facing a long time.
Oh, boy.
That case I wouldn't mind taking.
And so what happened with that jury, there was emotions obviously run so high, and you have these allegations that create visceral responses, allegations of rape, right? So we picked a jury in that case that had 9.
Well, you were on that case, Joey?
It was my trial, yeah. I got the acquittal in the rape cops case, of course.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize.
Kenny Moreno, yeah.
Well, how come I didn't help you on that?
I came in at the last minute. The PBA had already funded an investigation, so I came in because his lawyer.
It was a separate lawyer.
previous lawyer was telling him to take a 7-year deal. And he was like, I'm innocent. So we went to trial. And he was acquitted.
That's a perfect example.
He was acquitted. But I picked the jury. I had 9 people on my jury with Ivy League degrees.
Wow.
Okay? And I did that on purpose. I wanted it, first of all, I needed a jury to understand the science. Okay? And I needed a jury to understand that they have to be intellectual and not emotional when they render a verdict. Because there was a lot of public outcry in that case. I had protests outside the courtroom every day, rape cops, and it was something that I was worried about. But this jury, and one of the jurors was a journalist, and he wrote this great, piece for the Observer, the New York Observer, Confessions of a Rape Cop Juror, an 80-page thing, was how they deliberated inside. It was fascinating for me to read. It was a little scary, but fascinating also. It was a great case.
And people have to understand, Carlo, in this case here, Joe and me, 23 years old, never been married, we're together, we're partners together. Handsome Joe and Bo, young guy's 23 years old, we get this hot chick that all of a sudden wants to do the deed with us. Big deal. I could see myself doing it.
It didn't exactly go down that way, but all right. We'll for the purpose of the podcast, we'll use a little dramatic licensing, and we'll go in that direction. That's okay.
Okay, all right. But I'm trying to say there's a big difference between rape and consensual lovemaking or sex or whatever you want to call it, right, Joe?
Yes, obviously a big difference. One puts you away for a good part of your adult life.
It turned out
the other one's an act.
You know, with these high-profile cases, with these people with giving money to colleges and all that stuff.
God.
What you feel with that?
That is, I mean, honestly, I have 5 kids. 4 of them have already gone through, now 5 actually, Olivia's just finished, so gone through the college admission process.
Yeah.
And look, I would do anything I could to help them get in, except cheating. I mean, I wouldn't pay someone, I wouldn't bribe someone, and most of these kids knew about it. Most of these kids knew they were getting in for rowing when they never rowed a thing in their life.
You're hitting the point now. And Carlo.
And so what they're doing, but here's what the point is to me, is the worst part of this thing is what lesson you're teaching these kids in life. I mean, you're
don't worry about nothing. Mommy and Daddy got your back.
You could cheat. You get ahead by cheating. That's the lesson right off the rip. These kids learn. It's disgusting. I mean, these parents.
And here's the difference. We got mutual friends that got a lot of cash, and they give $1 million to school.
Yep.
They don't, but that's going to the school for an auditorium for this. That is not corruption. But when you go and a person advances personally for money you gave them, that's bribery.
Yeah,
that's the difference. Because I always kick out, like my friend Steve Ross gave the University of Michigan $300 million.
I think it's called the Steve Ross University now, right?
but the point is that, look, if someone in his family wants to go to, obviously it's going to happen. But he didn't give it as a bribe.
Right.
He gave it to help the school, and it's pro quo, and that's the difference. Yeah. You know what? It's just something funny. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about something positive. Man, this has been a really serious conversation. Great conversation for the listeners to bring them into the world of what goes on.
Out there.
Don't just look at a newspaper. We brought people into the real world today. How about our soccer club?
Yeah.
Have we still got it or what?
We still got it. I mean, it's taking a little more time than I wanted it to take because I'm so busy here and in practice. But we still got it. We you
like soccer, Joe?
I love sports in general.
I love football, Joe.
I love football. I love basketball. I'm a big Mets fan. I see that Mets jacket someone has out there. That's a great thing.
You want to rob it? You can.
I'm thinking about trying to take it
on the way up.
It looks a little worn, though. A little dirty, maybe.
Vintage.
But vintage, right. But no, look, as an Italian, soccer's always been in my blood, so it's another sport for me.
I didn't have no soccer. I come from Ozone Park. We didn't even have soccer there.
Yeah, it's a little different.
We didn't have soccer.
It's different Italian Americans.
Hey,
how you doing, Italian Americans?
But I like football.
Okay, football.
So
anyway, Venezia, in the most beautiful city in the world, we had this opportunity with this team, and we set some records.
What city is that, though?
Venice.
Venice is where the canals are, that the buildings the foundations are starting to get a little laxatious.
Yeah, they're going to be here way past our time on this earth, so... I'm going to Lake Como
to Joe Grano's house. Then I'm going to Sardines.
Sardinia.
Oh, okay.
Two of the great places out there. Boy,
I've never been to Sardinia, but I've been to Lake Como. It's beautiful. And the Amalfi Coast. Let me tell you, if anybody wants to go to Italy, you must see Capri. You must see Positano. And if you really get lucky, you go up to Lake Como.
That's paradise,
and it's so magnificent up there. I love it. Joe Grano built a magnificent villa on Lake Como. Wow. I can't wait to go.
No, it's paradise, really. Being up there is incredible. And, what's his name? Clooney lives up there, too.
Well, we stay away from this house. I don't want to get hit with a load. You know what? And believe me, like I said, whatever you want, whatever your deed in life is. You like women, you like men, you're a transformer, whatever you are. I support everyone's feelings. You want to go with a horse and be a horse lover, whatever you want to do. Not my problem as long as you don't affect other people. Freedom to everyone. So, Carlo, if you want to be a transformer, you'll tell me one day you're a transformer. I love you anyway, buddy.
I think I'm good, but
Okay.
I appreciate the support.
Okay. Well, Joe, it's really been interesting today, and I really want to thank you very much for coming today. Really in line. We'd like to have you back one day and talk about some other stuff. And you know what, Carlo, take it away.
All right. So we have to do our punk of the week. We do our punk of the week.
We do a
every
punk
week.
of the week. Something that's bothering you really immensely. It could be a person, a thing, whatever. What really bothered you this week that you would talk about? We call punk of the week, but it's an issue, a person, or whatever.
Yeah, Joel Embiid giving an elbow, to the face of Jared Allen. I'm a big Nets fan, Brooklyn Nets fan. Joel Embiid's the center for the Sixers. And he did something. He was a punk, man. He gave this kid an elbow for no reason. Should have been kicked out of the game. He got a flagrant one. It should have been
flagrant one.
Should have been arrested.
Wow.
So that was
assault.
That's my punk of the week. Not something that serious, but obviously as a Brooklyn Nets fan.
Game 3 tonight.
Yeah, game 3 tonight. Absolutely.
Well, my punk of the week, he pops up all the time. We just saw the Department of Investigation. He continues. Like when I ran from there against him, I talked about it. He continues. You got a real estate company? You want something done? Just go to Mayor de Blasio. You win it again, Big Bird. You are my punk of the week, and today's papers show it again. I just wish to God that the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District deputizes me and let me put handcuffs on him. Let me put handcuffs on him because he is taking bribes. Simple, and that's it.
Yeah, and he's supposedly Italian. He wants to do away with Columbus Day and the Columbus statue, like Columbus. I mean,
he's
the guy who founded this country.
His name is Warren Wilhelm, and I don't know too many Italians that are 6'7". He's definitely from the German side, and that's my punk. What about you, Carlo? What's your punk?
I'm feeling very positive this week. I have no punk.
Carlo, stop being so untransitional. But again, we want to thank you. Where can you get in touch with Joe? Where can people go on your shit, your social?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not a social. I don't have it. My law firm has social. I don't have that stuff.
How do they get to Joe?
I think we have, Tacopina Law. Let me see if I can find it. I don't even know. I don't have a social media thing. I don't have a Twitters. I don't do Instagram. I don't do Facebook.
You have plenty more time on your hands. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, Carlo, run it away.
So thank you very much.
And listen, we'll put it up on our site, how to get Joe Tacopina.
Absolutely.
In case you're out there, you're looking for a good lawyer, and put it this way. If Bo said he would hire Joe, Joe's the best. And if I got in trouble, there's one name I go to, Tacopina. And I tell you right now, Joe's there.
Brother.
Go ahead, Carlo.
All right, so thank you very much for being here, Joe. It was very enlightening. We learned a lot about the criminal justice system, as we always do. So thanks you to all our listeners. Keep subscribing to our show. Tell your friends. Give us a great rating. You could follow us on social media. We're at One Tough Podcast on Twitter. Bo is at Bo Deedle on Twitter and at The Real Bo Deedle on Instagram. We read all your comments. Keep them coming. We love your suggestions. We got a special shout-out to our dear friend, good friend of the show, Sean McCarthy. He listens every week while serving our country in Afghanistan. So we're doing a special dedication to you, Sean. Keep doing what you're doing. We're proud of you.
I've listened to your podcast, by the way. It's really good.
Well, I tell you what. You know what makes it really good? Guys like you, Joe.
Yeah,
and what we talk about now, we just took something apart and brought people into a world that they pick up a paper, they don't understand it. And I just love it. And the honesty, I think that you show, and obviously I show when I admit to I admit to
perjury.
Not perjury. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, perjury did admit to perjury.
Yeah, you're right. I committed perjury.
Well, I guess the legal argument.
Statute of limitations is passed though on that one, right?
To detect guns on people.
Oh no, I'm not talking about the guns on the person. I made an incident where there was a shooting and the car fit the description, and I had no right to pull him over other than question him. But I did reach under.
Your sixth sense of your.
Well, no, I had no right to reach under that seat. I should have kept him. He should have kept the machine gun, killed 6 cops or something, and that would have been all right, right, Joe? No, but you got to. You know what? You got to understand things. And if I went on the stand for perjury, and they got me on that, Joe, you know what I would have done? I would have said to the jurors, "You got to understand something. I saw the eyes of 10 dead, killed. If I have an opportunity to take a firearm off the street, I try to do that. I didn't give him that firearm. I didn't give him that machine gun. He had it under his front seat. But under the laws that we have to work by, you have to have reasonable cause. You have to have the right to look. And I'm sorry for reaching under there, but I did take a machine gun that was loaded off the street so it didn't kill another person. You want to convict me for perjury? I guess I'm guilty.
I'll represent you in that case.
What do you think that juror would do?
I got you in that case.
Well, it was great, Joe. Thank you very much.
Bo.
Thanks to all our listeners.
Bo.
Send all your emails, onetoughpodcast@gmail.com. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Hello, folks. Larry Kudlow here. Pay attention, because China is leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II. One that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Please go to freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold 100% tax-free.